Hello friends, welcome back to another episode of Hime's Honey. As per usual, I love to open up with Proverbs 16:24, which says, "Kind words are like honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones." I pray that this episode of Hime's Honey will help us to become more mindful of what we speak. May it invite the Lord into our everyday speech, and I pray that this episode will help us yield and not be quick to speak, but be slow to anger. So I thought of this episode. I'm currently reading a devotional called Everyday Gospel. It's by Paul David Tripp. And I was reading today's Devo, and it talks about, we're in the Proverbs. So basically this Devo is actually really interesting because it goes through the entire Bible. And I thought I've always wanted to do that. And so I just love that I get to do it with this everyday gospel Devo. We are in the Proverbs right now, which I'm extremely excited about because I love Proverbs. I've loved it growing up. I think when I was 8 years old, someone asked me what's your favorite Bible book? And at the moment, I knew Proverbs, so I answered with Proverbs. It's such bangers. I don't know about you, but it's just bangers. It's like Instagram captions. You know what I mean? I just love that. King Solomon, his Instagram captions would be incredible if he were here today. But he knew what he was doing. And yeah, so this morning I read Proverbs 10 and I thought it was so beautiful and so interesting that I thought I would share it with you guys today because I got a lot out of it and I would love to share it with y'all because I think we can all need it. I think a lot of people in the public sphere need it, including myself. I'm holding myself to this standard. I would love to keep myself accountable to this. So I'm going to read Proverbs 10:9 through 21, and then I'll kind of share with you guys what I found to be very interesting and all of that. Proverbs 10:9 through 21. Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but he who makes his ways crooked will be found out. Whoever winks the eye causes trouble, and a babbling fool will come to ruin. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all offenses. On the lips of him who has understanding, wisdom is found, but a rod is for the back of him who lacks sense. The wise lay up knowledge, but the mouth of a fool brings ruin near. A rich man's wealth is his strong city. The poverty of the poor is their ruin. The wage of the righteous leads to life. The gain of the wicked is sin. Whoever heeds instruction is on the path to life, but he who rejects reproof leads others astray. The one who conceals hatred has lying lips, and whoever utters slander is a fool. When words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent. The tongue of the righteous is choice silver. The heart of the wicked is of little worth. The lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for lack of sense. And that was Proverbs 10:9 through 21. And I thought that was so needed for today because I just see a lot in our culture and on social media that quick speech is rewarded. Getting a viral clip saying a very unwise, dumb thing in the moment is extremely viral. It gets clicks, it gets attention, it gets all the things we look for in the world when it's actually all found in God. Fruit for thought there. So I thought this was such a beautiful passage because as a poet, now that I know Christ, let's put it that way, I've always just been striving to make my poems poems I would want to hear in heaven. You know what I mean? Poems that could pass heaven's gates. And they'll be this poem is so familiar to heaven. I want it to be that. I don't want it to be a poem that's I don't like writing poems that are vitriolic, that kind of tear people down. I try not to. I don't like it because I'll get to a story later, for real. But I just think it's so much better, so much more rewarding to perform a poem that is life-giving, which comes to my first point. Leading others to life and edifying them is very wise speech, because I like when the verse says, The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life. And then it goes on to say, on the lips of him who has understanding, wisdom is found. I think that's so beautiful because it also said that hatred stirs up strife. And it got me thinking, if we belong to the Lord who brings forth life, then we get to do the same, and we ought to do the same. I always think about this because all throughout the Bible, especially in the New Testament, it talks about how we are children of God. How Paul talks about how we are co-heirs with Christ. And that gets me thinking, am I speaking in a way that I can sit next to Jesus, be a co-heir with Christ? I can sit next to Jesus and look like him? Question mark. Is that how I'm behaving? Is that how I'm typing? Is that how I'm posting? Isn't that interesting? It's like, am I honoring God with my speech right now? That I think is something I've been doing, and it's something I need to be better at on certain platforms, which is why I, like, right before this filming of the episode, I literally deactivated my X account. I was like, because as you may know, it is currently July 9th, 2026, and the preliminary hearings for the homicide of Charlie Kirk is going on right now. I'm a big fan of, big fan is a crazy word. I follow true crime quite a bit. I love watching trials and preliminary hearings. I just love following the process. Like, for example, I followed what was his name? Kyle Rittenhouse. I followed the Kyle Rittenhouse trial midway through. I didn't watch it from the beginning, but midway I watched this whole trial, and it was just crazy to follow. But similarly, I want to do that with the Charlie Kirk case, because I feel like there's a lot of things that are being said, a lot of misunderstandings, I would like to say, to strawman some people. Or not strawman, steelman. I want to steelman and think charitably as much as I can. So I think there's just misunderstandings as to how certain things work, and I just try to be patient. I try to be charitable. But X is a very uncharitable place, so I had to deactivate it while I was in the mood to do so, because I'm sorry again, but I just had to just delete it because I was like, this is not edifying to me. It's not cute. And yeah, I'll just watch it for myself without having to hear the opinions of other people. Let's just say it that way. But yes, so the reason, going back to the topic, I had to delete and deactivate my X account, because if I belong to the Lord who brings forth life, then I get to do the same. But at times I was interacting and very tempted to say things that would not give life. Period. Point blank period. So I love that the Proverbs says, love covers all offenses, which is exactly what Paul said of Jesus in not Ecclesiastes, in 1 Corinthians, I believe, when he said that love is patient, love is kind, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love covers the offenses that we could be gloating about. But patience is part of this love. It does not delight in evil. It yields to wisdom. And as mentioned, social media is a very unforgiving place that quite often at times, when not thought of too deeply, it does not yield to wisdom. We tend to be the first to say the most crazy thing about someone, and it's not cute. So I really love that this proverb kind of gets to the heart of it too. It talks about how righteous speech is prudent and restrained, which is so interesting because I think a lot of people tend to think, oh, if I could just quip, if I could just be snarky and witty. And I low-key thought of this. I thought this way in the past, where if I could be the most witty in the room, I'll be perceived as the most intelligent. But righteous speech really is prudent and restrained. The verse says, when words are many, transgression is not lacking. Just think about that for a moment. I thought about it I had to sit with that, because it's true. There are times in my life where I try to fill in the space. I try to speak a lot to explain myself and all of that. But really, where words are many, transgression is not lacking. And I also think this is the case because it reminds me of something that Jesus said in Matthew 5:37. He said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. So prudent speech, it tends to lead to consistency and integrity. And there's less impulsivity in prudent speech that yields to wisdom. It helps us to not be a slave to gossip and slander, if that makes sense. Because usually when there's impulsive speech, there is it's very easy to just start yapping in a very uncharitable way. And I think that's what is happening a lot in the public sphere on social media. And it's just, over time, I found it's just not cute. But that's my personal conviction, according to Proverbs. And of course, I'm not perfect. There are things that I've posted and said that I've deleted 15 seconds later because I was like, oh God, that's not cute. I don't think I should have said that. So yeah, prudent speech is so neglected these days. I think prudent speech is extremely undermined and undervalued because we're so quick to get the clip. We're so quick to be the next viral thing, to get that moment from people that we want to see them react in a way that is entertained, pleasured by us making a tomfoolery of ourselves, essentially. But wisdom is the complete opposite. I also like where Proverbs, this verse says that, I love this part. It's so cool. It says, the lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for lack of sense. So I just love how it says, righteous speech feeds many. And then in my head I was like, well, what does that mean? Just the visual of that is so beautiful. It feeds people because it provides, and the way I interpreted it is that it provides value that nurtures and edifies the recipient. And I can give an example of a time where I said something that did not feed people, but rather it was a bit cathartic. But basically, I was at an open mic. I was in high school. I was at an open mic, and then it's sort of like a workshop open mic hybrid. And at that time, I was a baby Christian. I was kind of discovering who the Lord was still for myself, coming out of witchcraft just a little bit. Not really coming out of it, just one foot in the other. 1 foot in the witchcraft, 1 foot in the Christianity. And yes, that was during the time when I was identifying as LGBT as well. And I was at this open mic, and I performed a poem in front of everybody about this crush that I had, who had no idea I existed. Just a crush that I had of this sales associate. And it was the most dramatic thing ever. I'm not even gonna lie. It was just so dramatic. And I was like, I thought I killed it. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I don't think I did. But I thought I did in that moment. And the moment I got off the stage, I felt this conviction in my spirit. It was just so funny. I mean, in that moment, it wasn't funny. It was painful. It was like I got caught red-handed. You know what I'm saying? That's how it felt like. I got caught red-handed. But I felt the Lord ask me, the Holy Spirit. I felt the Holy Spirit ask in my spirit, so what do they know now? And I had to just sit there and be like, they know I have a crush on a guy who has no clue I exist. And it was just like, wow, God. And in that moment, I realized, dang, I really let a situation go. I really let an opportunity pass me where I could have said anything I wanted. And I chose to talk about someone who don't give a rat about me. And I felt like, I didn't feel violated, but I felt like, ooh, we can do better than that. That's how I felt. And ever since that day, I just knew I wanted to write for Jesus. Ever since that day, I just knew there needs to be something bigger, something more that I could be writing about. And I mean, the Lord knew that. He provided. He ended up, taking me to a church that was doing open mics, that was actually doing, the service was actually for young adults, and it was for creatives. And I got to be surrounded by people who were creative for Jesus, and it was just such an edifying time. And God knew that I needed that. And so and I, even in that time, I just remember thinking too, these, what do you call, they're self-limiting beliefs. I remember one of the self-limiting beliefs I had was God, there's no way that I can write something new. David said it all. David, he said everything that needed to be said about you in poetry form. There's really nothing that I can say that hasn't already been said. So what's the point of me? What do you want me to do? You want me to crack open the Bible? You want me to plagiarize, Lord? But I mean, the Lord said, he's a very creative God. He knew what he was doing when he created David, when he formed me, when he formed you. He knew what he was doing, and he had a plan. And so, of course, I did end up writing a poem that I got to perform at the open mic at my church, and it was great. It was very fun. It was very cool. And in that moment, I realized like, wow, I can do it. And the Lord was so cool because I'm not a very good public speaker when there's like nothing to riff on, or if there's no script. But even with a script, I'm not a very, okay, maybe a little bit. I will give myself that. I usually do well when I have something to memorize that I know people are gonna vibe with. Poems, I feel like people vibe with them because it's so punchy. Like they're so easy to remember sometimes because they're kind of just like, it's like Instagram bios. Like what verse from the poem is gonna be that someone's Instagram bio in like 2 years? And I always too, like growing up, I always gravitated towards it because it's like everybody is just fixed on me for those 3 to 5 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes. And I can say anything I want. And that was powerful because I'm always I'm more like on the quiet, introverted side. And so just that time, the undivided time meant a lot to me. And it was such a nice little medium because the Lord ended up showing me, hey, it's not for you, it's actually for me. And I was like, yeah, because now I use it for sharing the gospel at secular open mics. And it's just very fun, very fun. And it's also nice because like art is subjective, I think. Well, that's what they like to say. Whether it is or isn't, we all have our preferences of what we can call art. But I'm like, surely nobody's gonna cancel me for talking about Jesus in the context of sharing art. And in Jesus' mighty name, they don't. So far, not to my knowledge, they haven't. But with art, you can really show your heart. So, people are gonna make art that's vitriolic because in their heart, they're feeling vitriolic. They're gonna tell Olivia Rodrigo, not sponsored, Miss Ma'am is talking about all this heartbreak because she's heartbroken. I'm sorry, queen. And she's also talking about envy and all that stuff because she's envious. And you can also really see the heart of a person through their art. And I think that's also something I really held very calmly in my hands. Is like, I don't want my faith, especially Jesus, I don't want Jesus to come across as this guy who's unrelatable, who struck them all down because they had certain inclinations in their teen years and felt like misunderstood. I didn't like that. And so that's when I kind of thought like, well, with my poetry, I can just share about my testimony about what, X witch, X LGBT, X new age. And that's extremely powerful because, and it kind of showed, and also especially processing these things that are so rejected by the world. And I'm talking about grace, forgiveness for your enemies, praying for your enemies, God's grace and his justice not being at odds, but being so intertwined, and all of these things. Now that means a lot to me. Making that known means a lot to me, more than a crush I have on a sales associate at a Korean skincare store. God bless her. Like I really honor Minnie Hime. She is just like, she was doing her thing. It was needed. It was a canon event that needed to happen. And that also kind of ties into how righteous speech is very prudent. It yields to Jesus. I think when we yield, when we say, does this honor God? Right when I post, right before I post, right before we post, and right before we put out a reel, right before we write a text, write an email, write an Instagram bio, I like to ask, and I love it. I got this question from one of my previous people that I worked with, and he's a very cool leader. Should I give him a shout out? Maybe later in another episode. But one question he asked was, does this honor God? Like, I forgot what he was talking about. Oh, he was talking about something at work, like a policy, something. And he just asked, does this honor God? And I loved that. I was like, whoa, it's so lovingly convicting. It's so disarming. That's what I like. And that's another good word. I love just being disarming. I want my poems to be disarming. I don't want them to be unga bunga scary Christian pastor. I want them to just be disarming. Like this is what I'm struggling with. I'm not trying to talk at you. This is what I'm processing with the Lord. This is what he showed me. And this is how I want to encourage you. Yes, that's another good word. I love encouraging. I think a lot of what Proverbs 10 is talking about, being a fountain of life on the lips of him who has understanding, wisdom is found. It's edifying. It's encouraging. Love covers all offenses. The wages of the righteous leads to life. I think it's encouragement. I love just encouraging people, meeting them where they're at. And this might be for another episode, but that's also what Jesus did. I think Jesus was very good at meeting people where they were at. He wasn't pharisaical. He wasn't like a Pharisee. He just met people where they were at, and he saw and spoke to them. Like, he spoke to them encouragement, and he called them out of their sin. And it's like, how was that different than the Pharisees? I think is a good question to ask. I think here again, Jesus yielded. Like, he yielded his speech to wisdom. And you can ask, like, but didn't the Pharisees have wisdom? The Pharisees had sacrifice. They didn't have mercy. Jesus said he requires mercy, not sacrifice. Or he desires mercy, not sacrifice. And that's like one of my biggest prayers as a poet, as a podcaster, as a content creator. I just pray that anything that I say will lead people to life, will lead people to Christ. And I hope and I pray that this is just one of those ways, this passage analysis. And also, yeah, I kind of wrote down here too, like, I put down based on Proverbs 10, I wrote down podcast, social media, and reels and poems should, and then I did bullet points, reels and poems, ... is a fountain of life, covers all offenses with love, wisdom is found in them, leads my listeners and readers to life, is restrained, prudent, yields to Jesus, is valuable as silver, feeds my reader/listener, and provides value to them. So let me know in the comments, does my work provide value to you? ? If it does, let me know. If it doesn't, feel free to say that too. And I would love if you could provide feedback. That'd be kind of cute. Thank you. Encouraging people who are doing things that you support is also very important. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, if you are a fan of encouraging speech and encouraging poems and you are sick and tired of all this, I want to be charitable. Let me be charitable. There's a lot of political. If you would like to read poems that are faith-filled and encouragement and a little bit edifying, and they talk about like forgiveness and grace and redemption, inspired by prison ministry, inspired by true crime, I would suggest you could read my book perchance. You could support it. That'd be kind of cool. The link is in the description. And on Instagram, the link will be in my bio. If you could support, that'd be cool. But yeah, if you don't want to support, that's totally fine too. But I just think that I think it'd be nice to have Christian and just people of faith to be supported. And also, I think it's important to put out and support the people that you want more of for like revival purposes. There's a way that I'm trying to word this in my head where it's like, why are we supporting secular artists that go against Christ, but we call the Christian artist a cheesy cornball? Like, why? At least they're trying, you know what I mean? And at least the lyrics and everything is more edifying. Like, I'd rather hear that in heaven than be in a place where I'm hearing all of this other secular stuff for eternity. Well, actually, let me be charitable. If you want to read my poetry book, it's on Amazon. It's called The Court of the Spirit. It is, as mentioned, it's about forgiveness, redemption, God's grace, God's mercy, inspired by prison ministry, inspired by a little bit of true crime. Very fun, very cool read. I do pray that this episode has sincerely helped you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Hime. I pray that it has blessed you. And if you are on YouTube and or Spotify, you may subscribe if you found this interesting. Please drop a like to let YouTube know to bring this onto more people's algorithm and front pages. And if you're listening on Spotify, please give me a 5-star if you enjoyed it, or give me a 3-star. Honestly, you can just be honest. I'm not really here to beg. I'm just here to talk. Yeah, just give me a 5-star if you really liked it. If you found it meh, you can give me 3. And if you give me a 1-star, I appreciate your honesty. I honor your decision. But I would recommend finding a new podcast if you don't like me that much. But yeah, thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you and I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye-bye.